Okay, now that we've kind of learned a little bit how to deal with Sketchblocks, and you'll have to really learn to play around, and it's really counterintuitive as you're making your blocks in Autocad. If you're going to actually use it in Inventor, one thing you might want to do is not draft them with rectangles and the like, and then go ahead and constrain like we've known to do. So I'm going to kind of go through an example here of some parametrically parametric controlled kind of piece of plate steel, more or less. I'm going to go ahead and draw it like it's counterintuitive. I'm going to draw this thing so it's not really anything like it's supposed to be. And then we're going to go ahead and remember, we draw the lines, we say we're done, and then the next thing we constrain, and I'm just going to first take it by constraining that one to horizontal, and then I'm going to draft and make this one perpendicular to that one, and I'm going to constrain this one to be perpendicular to that one. And we've now got, finally, that's about all we want to have for constraints here. We're going to eventually want to have some driven dimensions so we can kind of miter this thing out at its ends based on some angle, and you get into the trigonometry here. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to now dimension that piece there, that piece there, and we're just going to dimension that piece there. In other words, we're going to leave a little bit of a difference here, and we'll see why that'll pay off to know which one is which, and we're going to start trying to really double check DO. And you see in this case the program is counting at 0, so you're going to notice that in programming sometimes your lists start at 0, sometimes your lists start at 1. The interface here between the programming language in your calculator or Ruby and then parametric stuff in Civil 3D or Inventor, you need to kind of see those pieces there and start to realize how much data there is running behind these things. So I'm going to finish the sketch here, and in the end I'm going to go ahead and hit F6, you remember, put a home, and I'm going to put one last parameter in there. I'm going to extrude that out. Well, sure, we'll make it 10 and we'll hit it OK. And we'll go back to kind of the front view here, if we would, turn it sideways, and now we're going to look up at manage the parameters. And so we're going to go to the parameters here. If we remember here, this one was our bottom length, this one was our cross or our width, this one was the top length, and this then is the thickness, if you know each of these. So and so one thing we could do is, realistically, we might want to go ahead and get a 45-degree angle out there at that piece by double clicking in here and putting this equals. And in this case I've had problems looking at grabbing the D1. You've got to type in the D1 plus D0 and hit an OK there. And in this case we're going to take and we're going to make it 1/3 the thickness of the D1. We're going to say equals D1 divided by 3, and we're going to say done, and we get in here, and you're going to see as we go through, that doesn't automatically update when you go inside here to extrusion, sketch. You see, in fact, these things did not update. Alright, so there they are. We're going to hit done, hit cancel here, and now we need to hit update. When we hit update, once again, you see it kind of go through there, and even its thickness is changed to be thicker. So that kind of sense of updating, once again, you can do it from this view, that you've got to hit the update when you change the parameters. Once again, very similar to Civil 3D. So as we go right here, let's go ahead and make this kind of, the width is also going to be actually divided up. We're going to make it DO, the width, the length, divided by 10. So once again, done, and until we hit update, we get that sense. So all of a sudden you see about all the parametric stuff that this can be done, and this of course is one part. And so very quickly you could go ahead and do that part in an assembly and update it. So let's take a look at that. we're going to go ahead and file, save as. I guess we're going to see where we're going to call this para part. Save. And we'll go close that up and start a new assembly in this case. And you start to get now the layering. And if you notice, one of the things there you saw in terms of linkages, we're going to go ahead and look in the Patak gusset, I think is where we called it. I think we called it para part. Bring that in. There it is. Done. And all kinds of things you can do with this. We might look that in the front. We might want to go ahead and mirror that. And one of the things that's going to make them easier, we don't have a mirror plane at this point, so we're going to really want to make a mirror plane before we do that. Because if we mirror it about some place, so we're going to go ahead and turn on that XY plane and change so it's visible, right? And now we might go ahead and move that. And if you notice here, that part there is locked, so we're going to go right click and change its groundedness. Now when we go ahead and move it here, we can go ahead and try once again mirror the part. We're going to grab that part there, and the mirror plane is now, I believe it's gettable, and we hit next. We've made that part, and in fact we might also go ahead and see if we can do a copy. We'll turn on another plane, right click, visibility is there, and let's see if we can do a copy. Grab this one, and we're going to hit next. Not really too thoughtful. I'm right clicking a fair bit. Very often you can go ahead and turn the planes on, turn them off, but let's now look at how many parameters we have in here. So we've got here, again in here we have an ability to go to manage parameters, and now we see a few more model parameters in here. So we don't really see any parameters in this one, but if we go into here and look at your parameters, that would be one of the things we can do. So So how we then go to parameters in terms of linking, we'll need to look at as you get deeper and deeper in what happens. But we're looking here that in fact it's really here, the rest of these are mirrors and copies, so really the one that's got some sense to it is basically here. We're looking at the assembly view, we can go to the modeling view, and now here my belief will be if we go here, we do have some parameters we can look at. We still don't. Just going to double click on the inside, look at manage parameters, and now we see your parameters there. So you have to dig inside. You're not going to kind of once again master this, but I just want to show you how much of this stuff is data down below and how much you can kind of start. If you start with good general geometry, you can kind of fix things up later, and you'll see that's what Revit is going to be doing for you. At least our hope is that. So if I have here, I'm into here, and I can go ahead and change my parameters, and maybe I want to make it actually, instead of that divided by 10, I'll make it divided by 5. It must be unlisted units. I'm set done here. Right, I update, global update, and you see that it changed it everywhere. So once again, learning to hit that update should help, and we'll call this the end of our playing around with Inventor. And I'll respond to kind of queries on what you want to do and try to make a couple of the videos, but really point you now out into kind of experimenting and learning what you can do, especially keeping it in context with something else. So thanks for listening.